there was a sense of loss, but it really wasn't for that long, because what I chose to focus on was what I was gaining and what I gained from the experience I had with caregiving and with my husband, and what I could turn that into, because I know for him and for me, that was going to be so much more valuable for both of us. So I really, at some point, very quickly started to notice the difference. And I write about this in my book, The Power of Self-Belief. Right in the beginning, especially, it's like I knew I had the choice to focus on either the loss, what I had lost, and that would keep me feeling lost. And that's very, very, it is impossible to grow exponentially in a place of feeling like you've lost because you're a victim.
Hello, and welcome to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. This podcast is about exploring the grief that occurs at different times in our lives, in which we have had major changes and transitions that literally shake us to the core and make us experience grief. I created this podcast for people to feel a little less hopeless and alone in their own grief process as they hear the stories of others who have had similar journeys. I'm Kendra Rinaldi, your host. Now, let's dive right into today's episode. Our guest today is Caren Paskel. She is a best-selling author, speaker, and founder of Caren Paskel Self-Evolution and Youthful Longevity Yoga Training and Retreat. She is a former owner of Soul Yoga. She has led multiple studios and a thriving yoga community. And she did all this while navigating in a very personal adversity, which was caring for her husband, who she ultimately lost to terminal brain cancer. And we will be chatting about all the things she does and how she's been able to transform her practice now. And now she offers programs and teaches about being able to cultivate resilience and self-belief and just holistic longevity. So welcome, Caren. That was a mouthful of an introduction, but I wanted to make sure to share with the listeners who it is they'll be listening to today.
Well, thank you so much, Kendra. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here. I love to share my story, and also my goal and mission is to be inspiring, because I was inspired by many people, including my late husband, and I continue to carry the legacy by inspiring others.
Perfect. It's beautiful. I saw something today. One of the guests I had on the podcast shared, she's also a widow, and she shared a little bit of what grief, did for her. And it really is a transformation. It really just shifts a lot of our perspective. And we were talking off mic about all life has kind of guided you to where you are now, which would have not been the case had you not been through the things you've been through. And hence the title of this podcast being Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between. A lot of times when we're in the midst of grief, we don't see that there is so much growth that occurs in that process. And now you're a few years out of that, and you're seeing the little bits of the glimmers of hope and the seeds, right, that have bloomed.
Oh, yes, that's interesting, because in one of the programs I'm leading called Deep Thoughts and Revelations is about, at least this April's month was all about the April showers. We were talking about daily of the decluttering, the clearing, the showering, the cleansing, so that we actually are able to grow the seeds that we're planting. And, you know, I see way more glimmers. I mean, I'm seeing the brightest of lights. And the beauty of self-development is that you're more prepared for life's eventualities. So I was on this growth path transformation way longer than when before I met my husband. So I had already been kind of well versed with different emotions, how to address grief and how to overcome it. Really, that's what I love to share, because there was a sense of loss, but it really wasn't for that long, because what I chose to focus on was what I was gaining and what I gained from the experience I had with caregiving and with my husband, and what I could turn that into, because I know for him and for me, that was going to be so much more valuable for both of us. So I really, at some point, very quickly, started to notice the difference. And I write about this in my book, The Power of Self Belief. Right in the beginning, especially, it's like I knew I had the choice to focus on either the loss, what I had lost, and that would keep me feeling lost. And that's very, very, it is impossible to grow exponentially in a place of feeling like you've lost because you're a victim. And then shifting into look at all the blessings and what I have gained. And that allowed me to see my husband in a different way, because I thought, him being 12 years younger, we were in this for the long haul. It never even crossed my mind that something could happen to him at such a young age, died at 30. So I realized from looking at the blessings instead of what I lost, poor me, why did this happen? Life is unfair. That attitude, I noticed that energy wasn't helping me at all. And then looking at the gain, what I'd gained and all the blessings, the difference was so drastic. I thought, what if I just focused on this? Then I saw him as an angel and a light that came into my life for 6 years that I was blessed with. And so I don't even feel like I lost. I feel like, wow, thank you for bringing this amazing marriage, husband, human into my life for 6 years. Like, I can't even imagine where I would be without that. And that's what I focus on. It's the gift.
It is. It's a gift, but that aspect of perspective, I want to touch on 2 points. One, you said something really key. It's that you had already been doing all this work. You already had tools in this toolbox. When I share this podcast is a tool for people, and a lot of times people think they can only, like, let's say, hear this or read something about grief or read about death after the fact of something happening. If you start shifting and start learning and because it's going to happen, right? Death is going to happen to us or people around us or our pets or anything. Death is going to happen, and grief of other types too, of changes, also will occur. So therefore, having all these tools and self development and self personal growth and development are some of the ways in which we could do that. Spirituality, whatever someone may feel, are ways in which you can kind of gather these tools so that when something happens, you are able to use them. And that's the thing. You could have them, but then sometimes you choose not to use them. You chose to use them. You chose to shift your perspective. And a lot of times we are so attached to the feeling of, no, I want to stay in the victim mode,
Yes.
because what that brings into our life might even be more um, love from those around us, or it may make us feel guilty if we don't stay in that victim mode. If I don't stay here, then that means I didn't love the person that died. If I'm not, right, it
Yes.
could be. So you made that choice, and that's a huge part. You have the capacity of choosing certain parts of your grief journey. And that is just so empowering. Thank you. Share a little bit of that and how it was for you at that moment of really, like you said, I could be here, I could be there. But what was it that was clear for you that, okay, I definitely have to choose this path rather than staying in the missing part of him?
Well, that's interesting that you say missing, because I did learn that when we're talking about attachment, missing is actually a really healthy feeling. So I am always missing my husband, but it doesn't deter me from my growth. It actually helps me stay in the celebration of his life and what he gave or what I chose to receive, because he had so much to give. And that was also that pivotal moment of saying, if I stay in this grief for too long and I get used to this type of sadness, what is that going to attract in my life? And is this going to help me serve my clients? Because I'm mentoring, I'm spiritually educating. So I thought about my roles in my life. And so all of us are leaders, I believe. We're leading our children, we're leading our fur babies, our partners. Maybe we're leading in career, maybe we're leading our neighbors, our kids, whatever it is. We have roles and we have leadership, and we have to think about that. We're going out into this world, and even if we don't think we're leading anyone, our vibration makes a global impact. That's how energetic we are. And so I thought about that. What vibration am I contributing to the world? Sadness, grief, loneliness, feeling like life is unfair, victim, all these things, right? And I was like, whoa, so heavy, weighs me down. And it attracts the type of people who also want to stay in that. And when I was younger, I was sick all the time and I stayed in my sickness. I only realized this in the last few years because of the attention I got. I didn't know this at the time, but I realized when I was doing really well, no one really showed and expressed love and took care of me. But when I wasn't doing well, everybody took care of me, being the baby in the family. And so I got into this complaining mode to get that validation. And that kept me small and kept me sick, kept me safe, kept me in the survival mode. And that is no place to live if you want to grow. And so I have a stronger desire to grow and make a bigger impact in my life and other people's lives. So I was weighing out, what am I going to do with this? And then if I took it in a different way and changed my perspective, which is what you're talking about, I can still miss this beautiful human being to keep my closeness, to keep him in my heart and keep him alive because his energy is alive. It's just his physical form has changed. So why don't I celebrate his life as he would want and asked me to before he died? He basically said to me, because I made the biggest changes and transformations within myself within the 2-year period of him being sick. Now, if that's not a gift, right? So I'm like, he's losing everything and dies. He's losing. I'm still here. I have everything. So am I really losing? I mean, the relationship, yes, it's no longer here in terms of the physical aspect. So I really deeply thought it's more than just one moment. It's like an accumulation of thoughts. And how do I best serve my husband and give meaning to his life that I feel good about and mine? It's to celebrate. It's to miss him, but not be attached to losing him and know that he's still here and use that to help myself move on and forward and help other people move on and forward. So it's like whatever I chose, that's what I was going to be able to give to the world or not. And that's what I thought about in my mind.
Wow. I'm so curious now as to who Caren was prior. You mentioned a lot of you growing up and how you were sick and kind of seeing that that's a way that you got attention. And I totally can relate to that. I grew up having asthma, and I remember I would even bring my inhaler to school and be like, for show and tell, as if it was like what, like this attachment to this title of, oh, I am asthmatic, rather than I get asthma attacks, like this, So I'm curious as to your upbringing and when you started this personal growth and transformation, and how you met your husband. What is his name?
His name's David
David.
Prentice.
And David. So take us into that journey of who you were, how you met, and your own personal transformation to to now be in this space?
Who I used to be was an introvert, and I was the baby, as mentioned, by 8 and 10 years. So I was the little pitcher with big ears, is what they called me, because I was always around listening, and there was a lot of chaos with teenagers in the house, and I was a baby, and there was a lot of commotion, I will say. And so I just stayed in a bubble, and that was more safe. But I am a more introverted person. I am more creative. That is my nature. So I tended toward art, toward making things and being on my own. So this is very different than now. I'm still introverted, meaning I love to be alone, but I also love to be around people. And I did not love to be around people for the most of my life, even when I was teaching yoga. So it was very hard for me to connect to people before and after class. I would just kind of be like in and out. During the class, I was on stage because I have a stage presence and I feel comfortable presenting and teaching and being on stage. And, I was a dancer. I did some acting. I did a lot of stage presence and sports. So, those things, when I was in the role, I was a big presence. But then to connect to people, I would just be like, okay, I need to go home because my energy would be just sucked and drained. And so I didn't really know how to balance my energy as I was growing up. That happened later in life, learning how to take care of myself, how not to take everybody's energy on, etc. And that had to do with mentorship. I mean, I invested in a lot of mentorship, especially after my husband passed. But leading up to that, meeting him, that I like to share the story because being an introvert, when I met David, he was a huge extrovert and it terrified me, but I knew that's what I needed to help me balance myself. He was very, very confident and he actually gained more energy from being around people. And he had an energy that was really magnetic. And so I wanted to be in that proximity. I knew when I met him, I was like, that's the balance. I know I need that in my life. And he knew he needed a lot of my energy and my spirituality in his life. So it was actually a beautiful opposites coming together to work very beautifully together. So when we met, it was really it was a love at first sight. It was a connection that was undeniable.
Where did you meet? Where did you meet? Like, was it at an event? What
We
were the circumstances? And where I like to picture, I like to create a where on the planet were you? Like, was it here in the States? Which city? I like
I
to make
was
my
in
whole movie.
Michigan, where
Okay.
I'm from. And I had been divorced. So it had been years since my divorce and I had dated a bunch of people, but a lot of the people were from yoga. So it was like a student thinking I'm like this yoga goddess and coming to me thinking I need this person to help me, and that's not really where a nice meeting place is. And so it was always thrown off, and I realized this is not a meeting ground. It was just easy for me because I'm not like a bar hopper, so I would just meet people, teaching class, and thought, I need to stay in the I'm a yoga teacher and you're here to receive help, not a date. And so I kind of like cast off dating because it was so frustrating time and again of what was happening. And I had done some online dating. I was all done with all of it, but David was a date that I had made prior to this. I'm cutting it off of dating. And so I kept it because I didn't care anymore. I just thought, who cares? I'll just go have fun. I have this date with this person already and I don't care about the outcome anymore. And so that detachment, right, helped me.
You released
Yes,
expectations.
yes.
Yeah. I love
And I
it.
remember talking to him on the phone and we just picked a meeting spot. We picked like an art fair, music festival thing that was going on to meet at in public. And I it was called Arts, Beats, and Eats. And I remember talking to him, and he was like, I'm here. I was like, I'm here. And our eyes met. And his smile, I could cry talking about it because he's had this ear to ear smile. And I saw what he saw in me immediately. Like he was struck, but I was struck as well. And that's how we first really communicated, with just staring from a distance, knowing I think that's the person in the picture, and like the big smile. He was pretty speechless, which if you did know him, he's never speechless. So he had a hard time like talking because he was so taken aback. And one of the first things he said was, "You look way better in person than your pictures," which is usually the opposite.
Yeah, usually
But
they're like, "Oh, you're so photogenic," and you're like, you still keep wondering. You're like, "Does that mean I don't look good in person?" You're right. Like in this
which
case,
was
it's
a good thing. And I'm thinking like my pictures, they look better because I don't know. And he was like, no. And we just had one of those nights where it's just everything went,
magic. Mm.
yeah, it was magic. And I remember he kissed me goodnight, not like a big romantic, like full on makeout session, just one kiss on the lips. And it was like, it was magic. And my heart just was like pounding. And I remember him texting me either that night or the next day and saying, I know I'm not supposed to reach out this fast, but I can't help it. And I want to see you again. And I said, I feel the same way. And we went on a date the next night, and it was just, that was it. There was no turning back. And it
What
was,
year was this? What year was this when you started, when you met?
well, let's see. I was 36 and he was 24. He died in 2020. So it was 6 years before that, if you can do the math.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And you know, it just was this whirlwind where our lives were so enhanced by meeting each other, even though totally different backgrounds, totally different upbringings and circumstances. And our age difference was quite drastic as well. 12 years, that's over a decade. Like, I had a lot more experience, but only in terms of years living. His experience might have even been more than mine in terms of what he
Mm,
went through, because he was pretty much on his own. As 8 years old, he was making a living, trying to get
mm.
money to put more food on the table for his family. So it was it was really important for me to be with someone with a different background, different set of circumstances, because it opened me up in my heart in so many different ways. And I think I did for him as well. So we had an incredible few years where we were opening up our own businesses, and he helped me do that and believe in myself that I could, and just kind of flying with traveling overseas and all the new things, the new home. And of course we got our beautiful Great Dane Onyx. And so it was just a fabulous change. He opened me up to bigger thinking, being more expansive, coming out of that bubble that I was terrified and I lived in for so long, thinking it was keeping me safe when really it was holding me back. So I hope that answers your question.
I know. I'm like here with tears. It just moves me so much. Like I love seeing the whole movie as you're like sharing it and seeing your
It really was.
face light up as you're talking about him. And I love when you said that the moment you saw each other, you knew what each of you was bringing to, like bringing up into the other person just by seeing that expression. You know how they say, like, you see another, like when somebody says, "Oh, you're so kind," it's like, oh, you see what you are, right? A lot of times when somebody is telling you a
Yes.
compliment. So in that moment of that energy exchange across the room, you guys seeing what you felt through each other's it was just it's like a movie for me. It's like
It was for me too. It
so
still is.
beautiful. So he then is ill gets ill in 2018, then approximately 2 years
Yes.
prior to his passing. What came up from that? Like, how did he find out he was sick? Because then he's what, 28
28.
years old. Like, was he having headaches? Like, how did he find out he was ill?
There was no symptoms. It only happened the day of the seizure. He started to tell me that his right side, he was feeling weird in his hand, and he just didn't feel right. That's all he said. And so I said, well, it's Father's Day, it's Sunday, so it's not like lots of things are open. We would have to go to the emergency room, like probably, right? If things feel off still, I'm going to hop in the shower and I'll come down to see how you feel. And when I came down, he was bringing in food from outside and he just started to have convulsions. He was passing me the tray, and I just was so shocked, obviously, because he had no symptoms and no seizures before. So I didn't know what was happening. And I just said, "Are you joking?" Because that's all that could come to my mind, is that this isn't real. And he had a grand mal seizure. So he fell to the floor. He's a big man, fell to the floor, nose was bleeding. He was hardly breathing, foaming at the mouth. So I really thought that my husband was just dying and going to die right then and there. I had my phone in my hand for some strange reason. I was able to call, Siri and get EMS there. And by the time they got there, he was regaining consciousness and then he woke up. So he was totally unconscious for a while. And they assumed this was probably a seizure. We got to take you to the hospital. They found a mass from a CT. So we didn't know what it was until they got an MRI, and then that affirmed that it was a brain tumor. So they had to go get it out to take, to see what grade it was, and found out it was a grade 2 astrocytoma, which is still brain cancer but not needing treatment. So at that point, we thought, okay, we're going to watch this. My husband is like, if he puts his mind to something, that's it. So, like, getting healthy, diet, exercise, whatever therapy he needed to do, he was like on top of it. And that was his mission. And it happened like a year later when we were overseas, because he knew, I think subconsciously, that I don't know if he knew he was going to die, but I definitely know that he knew it was a possibility. And this was his wake up call to live life now and not wait. Because being younger, he just thought, I have all this time. When cancer hit him and brain cancer, he reevaluated his mindset and he started to live more in the moment. What's most important to me now, which was me, family, right? His legacy, and living his dream life. And one of the things he always wanted to do was travel all over the world. So we went on this epic trip. And before we went, he was starting not to feel well. Things were going wrong. His MRIs were getting better and better and better. But then he said he felt something was wrong. And so instead of getting an MRI before we left, he knew that there was a possibility of something growing back. So he didn't want to know, because if he knew, he wouldn't be able to enjoy this trip or even go on it. So he asked his doctor and he waited. They said, well, at this point, what's the difference between a few weeks? Like, go have your trip. We had to come home early. It was supposed to be a 5-week trip to Amsterdam, South Africa, and Paris. He was having symptoms and seizures throughout the whole trip, losing sensation through his right side of his body. And I had to navigate the entire trip. And I was not much of a navigator. So that's why I'm grateful, because he strengthened me in so many ways. His weaknesses made me stronger. And now I'm able to do anything on my own. Of course, I don't try to do things on my own, but I'm saying I'm fully independent because of him. And navigated this whole trip, including learning how to drive a stick shift. Never did that before because he couldn't, his right
Wow.
side wasn't working. So he had to teach me how to drive the car. It was very stressful for me the whole trip because he was so sick and we knew something was going on. So we came home early, and the chaos that we came home to, I wrote about in my book. I don't need to go through it here. It was, we had people move us into a totally different home, but this home was under construction in the dead of the winter. So we came home to that, and it was just pure chaos. He got an MRI right in the holiday, like New Year almost, like right Christmas time, and it showed a huge tumor had grown back within a matter of weeks. And this was the GBM, glioblastoma, which is the rarest form of brain cancer, and it's terminal. They give you maybe 6 to 9 months with treatment to live. So that's what we had happen in 1 year's time length. And then he had to have another surgery. Then he's going through radiation, chemo. And at that time, the pandemic hits. So we had to both close our businesses down. I just decided to close my studio because after 7 months of the mandate, I needed to make a choice for me how I could help my husband the most. And I knew that I could take my career online, and that was going to be better for me as well. So I'm sharing all this because you can see how sometimes when something seems so terrible, there's so many blessings in disguise, no matter what it is, no matter what tragedy it is. It's like if if the pandemic didn't happen, I would have never made the choice. I probably would have stayed in my studio comfort of owning my yoga studios for way too long, even though it was so hard on me, even before David got sick. And so it allowed me to make a choice in the quickly to get out of that situation, which was the best career choice I could have ever made for myself. Never would have done that without the pandemic and my husband being sick. So I say thank you for the tragedies that allow me to make other decisions and pivots in my life for the better. And sometimes it takes that. And I truly believe that the universe gives you what you need to grow. So if that means the universe gave me David to grow and even his passing was for my growth, then I'm grateful. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and for somebody that's listening to this and they're fresh in their grief, sometimes it is not easy to hear that these type of what people can think toxic positivity. It's not that. It is just hope. It's hope. It's a choosing how you want to shift this beautiful energy that is love, that you
Yes.
grieve the person that you love so much. You can choose to how you shift it in a way that is more conducive to your own well-being as well and your own health. And I love what you said at the beginning because we are constantly like our own vibration affects everything in the world. A lot of times we don't see that. We think, well, this is only affecting me. But it is not. Like it affects your circle of friends, it affects your family. And even if you don't have anybody around you, it still affects. It still affects because again, we are living beings on this on this planet, on this universe. It has an effect. So it's a choice as to how it is we choose to vibrate and what kind of energy we choose to give to the world. So thank you for all these nuggets and sharing that journey of transformation. Now that pivot of going then onto online, tell us about that and what it is you developed now that you are online and the writing of your book, The Power of Self-Belief. Share that part of your journey, please.
Well, when I was with David in his illness, he actually inspired me to shift. And there was a moment of him walking down the stairs, very little mobility at that point. Or he was going up and I was coming down and we were looking at each other and he just said, "You need to do something." And because I was kind of wallowing in, I was trying to hold on to my business. So I was teaching online yoga classes from my home, live streaming them. And it dawned on me, everything was decreasing. All my clients were terrified and in fear, not all, but most of the students, of money, of what the pandemic was, of the virus. So instead of, which I thought people were going to be like, I need yoga, it was everyone was stopping their membership. And so business was plummeting. And I only had a few core students and teachers who were sticking together, which was great. And so I kind of focused on that. It was like, who is still here and who wants to be served? And how can I serve them in a bigger way? Instead of all these yoga students, which makes your business, the mass and the volume of students. You can't have a yoga studio with just a few students, right? I was like, well, what if I don't have the yoga studio? Then I don't need a mass amount of students. And what do I really want to do? And what I've always wanted to do since I was exposed to the yoga philosophy was the eternal values to live by. And so when I got exposed to the philosophy of yoga versus just the poses, I started to learn how to live life, as we were talking about in the beginning. I started to learn the skill of living well, which actually takes practice and knowledge of the values and universal laws that last and that are timeless. Everything changed when I was exposed to this knowledge. So all I wanted to do was share it. So I was speaking about it in every class. I led study groups called Vedanta study groups. So this was my true calling. And when I opened my yoga studios on my own, that was really the desire, was how do I get this education to more people? And this is the best platform that I knew. When the pandemic hit and my husband got sick, a light bulb went off. Like, I can create an educational course, sort of like the workshop I did in studio, and do it online. The only question was, how do I get it online? And of course, the reticular activating system, your RAS. Once I started thinking that, a Facebook ad came on, a webinar came on how to grow your yoga business online, and immediately signed up for that. No hesitation. It was like $8,000. It was a really big investment at a time that I was losing all this money. So that's one thing that I want to share with people is when you invest in yourself, always, 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 you'll get a return on investment. It's not always money right away. That will just come, but it's always a return on happiness, on energy, on love, on more knowledge, etc., on more giving. So right away, I was like the star student in this program. And not only that, my studio was still open, meaning I could still go in it. And my husband, of course, even with brain cancer, even with every aspect of him declining, he still was inspiring me. And he said to me, why don't you go to the studio and use it as your office? Because he knew I needed to get out of the house. He could tell I was suffocating there, not because of him, but the constant, the family, right? When someone's ill, he had two families because his parents were divorced. I had my family all coming at me and him and us, the pandemic going on. From every end, I was getting pressured. That's how I felt. They weren't trying to do that. But that's how and
Plus,
near
as an introvert, all this energy coming in that you're like, how do I shift that when everybody's and you're, oh my gosh.
and his brother was living with us as well. But that was a godsend because I knew if there was someone else in the house, I'm able to leave. Because caregiving for someone who has brain cancer, I don't know about other cancers, but with brain cancer, because it affects everything, your motor skills, he was falling down the stairs. He was having trouble speaking, writing, all these things, communication. So there was a constant emergency sort of urgency feeling in the house at all time. So I was in survival mode. So he sensed that, and he knew if I got out of the house and I was doing something I loved and building and creating something, not only could he live vicariously through me, like he was happy to see me. It wasn't one of those relationships where we were ever jealous or envious. We were like inspired when we really went out and did something, and motivated by one another. We cheered each other on. So when he was low, he was like cheering me on because it helped him for him to see me successful. So I went to the studio every day and I built this course online. I originally called it Cliff Notes on Happiness, but I changed it to Karen's Notes on Happiness. So it was all my like 20 years of wisdom from India and my gurus and all this eternal knowledge, values, universal laws condensed into a shorter 3-month course online with my coaching. It was brilliant. I mean, I just went to the studio every day to make my videos. And when I went there, I want to share with everybody this because it's so important with grief. You talked about when things change, it's not just grief because someone dies. In those 2 years, there were so many drastic changes between his health, his personality, what was going on in our relationship, our move, the pandemic, our businesses. So there was so much loss, but really just change, I say, because loss is so heavy. Change, change, change. So within all of that change and going through, when you have purpose, when you have meaning, that's what kept me grounded. Me going and building this for other people, it not only helped me because I talk to so many caregivers and they always feel like all they're doing and their full purpose now is for taking care of that person, but they lose themselves. And the thing is when you lose yourself, that's not good for the person you're caring for. And I got to see this. He pushed me out of the house. Get out of here. Do your thing. Because he couldn't stand seeing me only caring for him and always worried or upset because he was sick. That hurt him more. So by me going and take care of myself and living my purpose, that not only helped me, but it helped him with all the change that was going on. So I did this. He got to watch and I was successful immediately. When all these clients signed up to take my program, and I made more money in 1 month than I did in like a year at the yoga studio, I realized that the studio, it was time to let go, that I had outgrown it and that it was okay to leave that because of what I was building. So when you replace something with something that changes or goes, it's not as hard because then you still feel that new, fresh sense of purpose and meaning here when this stuff is going away. So that really helped me say goodbye to the studio as I'm coming into this more impactful version of myself that could reach way more people because of the way that I was doing this online. And that's what shifted me into being a spiritual educator and escort, I call myself. I take people, because I thought about it, I was like, I'm a spiritual escort. I intimately take people to their highest potential. And it is an intimate process because we're so close, we become
I
best
love
friends
that.
in a way. Yeah. So it's this platonic escort that I am. And I want to share that at the same time, after David passed, so I have my business online, he passes away, and I was in a crossroads. And I knew I needed someone like David, that energy of belief and confidence and support and encouragement in the flesh. So I call them my spiritual parents. I hired spiritual parents. I hired mentors who are beautiful human beings that help me continue to see the world and all the possibilities. And that's where I was inspired to write about my story and the power of self belief and what happened with David and let people hear this story. So it really came from me deciding that I'm worthy of investing in myself to have beautiful relationships that support me. That catapulted me into more programs that I created, more ideas that I had, and partnering up with my mentors in business. So at this point in my life, I am so grateful to share that the transformational relationships that I invested into, we've created the Youthful Longevity Yoga Academy. And now we're leading yoga classes that are master classes for longevity. And we have support calls and a whole program for longevity, international retreats. We just led one in Costa Rica. So if I look at the past, I'm so grateful for all that's occurred in terms of what you said in the beginning, the choice I made with what to do with it.
I could ask so many things as you're saying this because what you shared about you being the spiritual like escort now for others or spiritual you're a mentor as well for others. You yourself are also then you hired people to be your mentors. And the part of investing in ourselves, we tend to be not only in the caregiving part, but in general. Well, let me just shift it even just as a parent of two for so many years I was like very guilty about spending anything even for me, right? Because you're caretaker to children and we kind of put ourselves in the back burner even as parents. And in this case, even as a caregiver for someone that's sick, you would have probably stayed there had it not been for him pushing you out. So here for those that are listening, take what Caren is sharing and apply that in your lives because it can transform not only yourself but it transforms also the other person that is seeing you
Yes.
go through that too. So and there's just a lot there. Caren, how can people contact you and how do people work with you and get the book as well? Like
Yes. Well, my book, The Power of Self Belief, can be found in multiple places. I know it's on Amazon, even in the Kindle form, and I have an audiobook too on Amazon available, but it's in Google Books. It's on shelves, I think, in bookstores and Barnes and Noble, Target. So if you Google The Power of Self Belief by Caren Paskel, you will find my book. And I really recommend it because not only are there teachings in there, eternal values woven into the story, but there's beautiful pictures of my husband and I throughout the whole book. It's like a picture book and a movie and an album all in one. But my favorite part is the cover. There's a gorgeous, big, wish I had my book nearby, but if you look it up, you'll see it. It's this like explosive butterfly with just all these bright colors. So, that to me, the energy of that, having that book will remind you of your own potential and transformation to choose that. And that's always a choice and it's within you. And we're meant to transform through all that we, you know, are exposed to and that comes our way and that we go through. So everything is an opportunity. That's my gift to you. Everything is an opportunity. Let the butterfly remind you of that and your gifts as a human being. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. So please know that my information is in the book. But if you want to go to my website, that's really easy, KarenPaskel.com. My books, all the things, the yoga academy, the retreats going on. On Instagram, you can hit me up, Caren Paskel. That's just my name. Just look me up and I'm available and would love to connect.
perfect. You no longer do one-on-ones, correct? You mainly do group sessions or do you still do the one-on-ones?
It is something that has to be inspired. What I work with my partners now, it's more of this community vibe where we do mentorship and group health coaching. When somebody wants the a la carte and more personalized, we can work that in as well in a way that works for all of us. So it's really customized to each person. And I always say it just has to be an energetic fit, right? And match, like perfectly aligned for us to work together in some capacity.
Yeah, because if not, then
Right.
energy suck rather than energy give, and it could happen both ways. I a lot of times people don't believe that I also say I'm an introvert. People don't believe me, then I say I'm an introvert because like what? Just like what you described yourself, I'm like, oh, I can be on a stage, I can do all that. I studied theater, that's my major, but it's how I get my energy that was like the aha, I get it. I get my energy more on these one-on-ones and depending on the energy of the other individual. So I could relate to that so well with you when you were sharing that. Caren, I always ask this towards the end of my interview. Is there anything you want to share with the audience that I have not asked you throughout the interview?
Well, I think what you were talking about, I just want to touch on a little bit more that it really takes a village for your transformation, for your evolution, for grief to rise above and overcome. We're not supposed to do this on our own. And as an introvert, I was always thinking that I could do it on my own and I wanted to, and I was better off. I've opened up because of my husband to accept more people in my support circle and network so that even though I'm a giver and I'm a mentor, I know that I deserve mentorship and I deserve to receive, and they work together. So I just want to say, whoever's going through change or grief, open up to all the support systems. I've compounded my support. I never just do, oh, I'll just do this one thing and I'll be good. It's like, how many support systems, how much energetically aligned people can I have in my life to receive? And this has given me so much more energy to give more, to be more generous, to excel in my gifts and talents, to make an impact. So please know that you're not alone. It takes a village, and I am accessible. I want you to know.
Thank you so much, Caren Paskel. This is again was Caren Paskel, and I'll put all your websites and any contact information below in the show notes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again so much for choosing to listen today. I hope that you can take away a few nuggets from today's episode that can bring you comfort in your times of grief. If so, it would mean so much to me if you would rate and comment on this episode. And if you feel inspired in some way to share it with someone who may need to hear this, please do so. Also, if you or someone you know has a story of grief and gratitude that should be shared so that others can be inspired as well, please reach out to me. And thanks once again for tuning in to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. Have a beautiful day.